Welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show, where we talk all things vegan. If you're not already vegan, no worries, we'll get you there. If you are, tune in for health advice, information on climate change, and all the damage done by our most destructive industry, animal agriculture. We'll also talk cooking, theater, film, and culture. My two reasons for starting this podcast: to entertain, to inform, and to make people vegan. Oh, that's 3. Shit. Hello and welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show. My guest today is Mark Cerkvenik. He is, you may not be surprised, a chef. He is the chef of VegJauntsandJourneys.com, where tours go around to beautiful places inside America and beyond, and they eat healthy food. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Glenn. It's great to be here with you today.
All right. Well, you're looking the role.
I try. I clean up pretty well, you know.
Yeah, you look like a chef. You've got it going. Now, tell us your story. You became vegan how many years ago?
So it's been a really long journey for me, Glenn. My wife and I actually started as vegetarians back in 1994, and we were doing pretty well. Of course, much younger then. I'm going to be 62 here in December, but over the course of time, the weight kept going up, and the blood pressure and cholesterol and mobility and all those kind of good things that affect the vast majority of Americans as we age. And when I reached, I think it was, it would have been 2018. So, 5 years ago, I was just about 58 at the time. We had lost a lot of people in our lives, so aunts and uncles and my parents and my wife's parents. And we really decided, even though we were a vegetarian, truth be told, I was a pescatarian, and we were the types of vegetarians, we were junk food vegetarians, so we didn't really read labels or didn't pay attention to a whole lot of things. I ate cheese and dairy and all that kind of good stuff, but really decided, though, in 2018, early 2018, that if we were going to have a healthy rest of our lives, that we really needed to do something even more consistent and even more dramatic, if you will, than just be a vegetarian. So that's when we went vegan, and we actually went whole food plant-based, which, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, is even a little bit different than being vegan. So 2018, whole food plant-based. And before we just got on, we were just talking about how much weight I've lost to date. So I've lost just about 45 pounds, probably got about 10 more to get to my ideal weight. But I'll be 62 in December, and no medication of any kind. And
Had you been taking medications before?
I was taking blood pressure medicine, and the doctor was really trying to push me out to do statins. And when she started talking to me about statins, I think that was one of the many things that woke me up and said, you know what, I don't want to be on statins because all those side effects, and I just really need to get my act together. So,
now, did your cholesterol go down too?
Yeah, my total cholesterol is like about 180, and all my other numbers are really good. My glucose level is like 75, and it's everything looks really, really great. Blood pressure runs around 120 over 70, 75, somewhere in there.
That's fine.
Yeah. So really healthy at this point. At this point in my life.
And you look good in that outfit.
Thank you. Yeah, never would have dreamed of being at this point in my life, being a chef. I'm also a licensed Food for Life instructor. I got licensed by PCRM in March of 2020, and actually met my business partner. She was one of my students, and she has a vegan tour company, VegJauntsandJourneys.com, and she wanted to start some no oil tours. So I cook without oil, no processed sugars. We really just use date paste. Occasionally use a little agave and some maple syrup, and very, very limited amount of salt. And we even do accommodate no salt diets as well on our tours.
So tell us about veg jaunts and journeys.
Yeah,
What kind of trips? How many people go? Where do you go? What do you
sure, sure.
eat?
Yeah, yeah. So Veg Johnson Journeys was actually started by Kim Giavacco, and Kim started the company in 2016, and she started them. Her company is really international based tours that for vegans, and she would set these tours up in restaurants, vegan restaurants throughout Europe. And shortly after she got started, a couple of years after, she started getting requests for no oil tours. As most of you may know, you go to a vegan restaurant, doesn't necessarily mean that the food is healthy. Yeah, there's not animal products per se, so there won't be dairy or any meat or fish, but they do typically cook with oil. In fact, we have a restaurant here in Chicago that's really known for its diner food. And I mean, it's saturated in oil, even though it is all vegan food. But she started getting requests for no oil tours. And she was actually a student of mine during COVID. She's in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm outside of Chicago, just south of Chicago. And she was on a class that I had. It was a weight loss class. I call it No Calorie Counting Weight Loss. And I started that that was in January of 21. And it's kind of a popular time of the year, of course, for people to really try to start losing weight and really watching their, really trying to live their New Year's resolution. And so it's a really good time to run those types of classes. But she was a student of mine, and after one class, she said, "Can we spend a few minutes talking after class?" And I'm like, "Sure." And she kind of laid out this proposal that I'm looking for a chef. I'm looking for to run some no oil tours in the United States. And what do you think? Are you interested? And one thing led to another, and we did our first tour in Charleston, South Carolina last, let's see, that would have been last April. And then our second one was in Asheville, North Carolina in June of last year.
Well, that was convenient for Kim, Asheville, North Carolina.
It was. Yeah. One of the reasons we did them was on the East Coast there, so she could, have a easy jaunt, if you will, to those locations, and knew those locations, and they were kind of a test drive, quite frankly, how popular these tours would be and how we would work together, because we had not met in person, and quite frankly, she didn't even taste any of my food until the first tour. So
how did she like your food?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because her family, her parents were both in the restaurant industry for another number of years. They're in their late 80s, early 90s. And when her mother asked, "Well, what do you think of this food?" She said, "I've never tasted it before." She said, "What do you mean? You hired this guy to cook before on one of your trips, and you've never tasted his food?" "No, but he's a really good guy, and he seems really know what he's doing. And the food that I've made, the recipes taste really good." And so
you should have served her some really bad food for that.
Right. I should have brought like some fish nut or something like that. But so she liked the food, and our guests do too. And if it's any kind of testament to what people think, about a third of our customers now for our tours this year, and then even booked into next year, are repeat customers of ours already. Okay. So I think it's a really good testament. People like the food, like the tours, and you just really have it.
So is Kim the tour guide?
Yeah, so Kim is actually the tour operator. So her background is really travel logistics and planning, and she's just got a heck of an eye for locations and venues and so forth. And then myself, and then my wife Lori, who acts as our sous chef. And so Lori and I do all the cooking. I also do some of the driving and transportation of people. They are very small tours, 10, 12 people at the most. So lots of flexibility, lots of opportunities to get to know people on these tours. So it's not like you're in one of these big, huge buses getting carted around. We basically have minivans or those small passenger vans, 12, 14 people, and get folks around the various locations.
And how does your wife do as a sous chef? Is she good?
She's excellent. So her background, she was a medical technologist.
I ask because
you want to be a
if you're ever, I'm not saying that your wife isn't good, but I'm just saying that I'm available.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think you're going to have a heck of a competition after 37 years of marriage. We kind of know how to work with each other, and
I kind of hate it when there's always this inside hiring.
Yeah, right. It's nepotism.
It isn't
at
fair.
its best here.
It isn't really fair.
Yeah.
So, do you normally cook? Prepare not only 3 meals a day? Are there desserts? What do you?
So a couple of things. So this year and going forward, we've really kind of looked at our niche being the locations that are around national parks, both in the United States and internationally. So, for example, this year our first tour was in Zion, the Zion National Park. We stayed in Utah. Our second tour was in Rocky Mountain National Park, and then in a couple, actually about a month from today, actually, our last no oil tour of this year starts in Maine. We'll be outside of Acadia and kind of around that area of Maine. But with all of our meals, with all of our menus, I should say, there's 3 meals, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then we typically have a snack. Again, all the meals are low fat, whole food, plant-based, no oil, limited salt, and no processed sugars. And what we do, we plan menus that are regionally based. So, for example, Maine's a great example that we're going to do things like vegan crab cakes or clam chowder. And those of you that are familiar with some of the cuisine in Maine, there's things called lobster rolls, right? But we're making a lobster bowl, so it's all.
And what do you use for the fake lobster?
For the fake lobster, so fake lobster is really a combination of hearts of palm.
I thought you were going to say hearts of palm.
And chickpeas, and then we do our own vegan mayo and panko breadcrumbs. And I got to tell you, the texture, the aroma, because we also use dulce flakes, which is essentially seaweed, so it gives that kind of ocean aroma, if you will, to the crab cakes, and they're just wonderful. We make a nice remoulade sauce, which is kind of almost analogy would be like a Thousand Island dressing, but even better. And you put that on the top, and it's just beautiful. And then we're also going to try to do some, if I can get some good trumpet mushrooms in Maine, we're going to do mushroom scallops. So trumpet mushrooms are kind of the big tall mushrooms with a nice big umbrella top, and then the stalk is relatively thick. If you can get really nice trumpet mushrooms, we'll cut those about 1/2 inch thick, boil them in a broth, and then saute them in a pan with a little white wine. Of course, you're cooking the alcohol off, but then it gets that nice flavor. So we try to do regional dishes like that you would typically experience if you weren't a vegan or weren't whole food plant-based in those in the various areas.
See, what people don't realize when they eat real lobster is they may be contributing to killing whales.
Is that right? I did not know that.
Well, the lobster, what do they call themselves? Lobster trappers.
Trappers.
Put these traps at the bottom of the ocean, and a line goes up to a buoy on the ocean surface, and the whales sometimes hit those ropes and get trapped. And there was a story of a lobster trapper. I put this in Food is Climate, who got swallowed whole by a right whale.
Wow.
And he was swallowed whole for about, 10 seconds or so. And then the whale released him.
Just like Jonah in the Bible, right?
He was released. And I don't know if he's still in that business, but I hope not. I hope he learns something from the experience.
Right. Well, and the other thing that people don't realize about, seafood and lobster, trout, um, quote unquote, the healthy fish like salmon. I mean, they're still all living in the ocean. We know runoff from crops and agriculture goes right into the ocean, and where all those toxins typically saved, it's in the fat. And when you're eating that fatty fish, the amount of toxins that people take in. So you think it's a healthier food or a healthy fish, but there's no such thing really as a healthy fish, unfortunately.
Now, Mark, you contributed some recipes to my book, Food is Climate.
I did.
One of them was Uncle Mark's poppy seed cake. Do you ever prepare Uncle Mark's poppy seed cake on the Veg Johnson Journeys tours?
I have not done that one.
You haven't gotten requests for it?
I have not gotten a request, but Glenn, if you come on a tour, we'll make sure we make Uncle Mark's poppy seed cake.
All right.
Yeah, there's a funny story behind that. I think I
what's the story?
Well, I talk about that in the book. So my dear Aunt Marie, she was actually a cousin, like one of those cousins twice removed. She was my mother's first cousin's wife. So whatever that would make her to me, I don't know. But
a stranger, I think.
A stranger, yeah. But Aunt Marie was one of these dear souls. She'd always have my wife, myself, and my parents over for Thanksgiving, and they were kind of like our extended family. But the original recipe that I found that my Aunt Marie wrote was in November of 1961, and had mailed it to my mother. And mind you, I was born in December of 1961. So, and it was always one of those recipes that I remember growing up and having as a kid. But the original recipe uses sour cream and butter, and you cream sugar and butter together, and sour cream makes this really moist texture. So I worked kind of hard at really making it vegan. So, to get that rise out of the cake, I use yeast and then of course plant-based milk and so forth. But it's pretty good. So it's a testament, it's a tribute, if you will, to my Aunt Marie, who's been gone a number of years, who died, by the way, of pancreatic cancer. I don't think she was in her early 50s when she died of pancreatic.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Okay. So you have some kitchen hacks for us, is that right?
I do, yeah. So Glenn, when you and I were kind of talking about demonstrating what I could do to when I come on your show, I thought people, a couple of things about being whole food plant-based. First of all, we are the exception. There are very few of us in the world. I've heard statistics anywhere between 3 to 7% of the population is vegan, but what's that percentage of whole food plant-based? So if your viewers, listeners out there are whole food plant-based, and they know how difficult it is if you're really trying to stay away from oil, how it is to eat out. We find restaurants all the time where we can really press people to eat out, to make no oil dishes, but they don't always taste really good and so forth. So what I tell all my students is you have to learn how to cook. You've got to be okay with cooking. And a lot of times people just are like, well, I spend so much time in the kitchen, I don't have that kind of time. So I came up with some kitchen hacks. I'd like to talk. I've got 10 of them, and some of them you may do already. But yeah. So should I just go ahead and start?
Just go ahead, and then I will vote for the best kitchen hack.
So they kind of build on each other a little bit.
Okay.
So my first one is, do you know what this is, Glenn?
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
That is that's a sunning device.
Yeah, you get a nice tan right now.
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, it's a bench scraper. So it's a bench scraper. So
Bench
um,
scraper?
bench scraper. Yeah. So
So you get food off benches?
you get food off your workbench. So
Okay.
so what you do is as you are cutting or what have you, and I'll demonstrate this. I'm going to tilt my camera here in a little bit, but this helps you kind of lift the food quickly off the surface that you're cooking on, off your cutting board or what have you, and then you could just drop it right into your pan. So this bench scraper is one of
Yeah.
the first tools I bought when I embarked upon this whole food plant-based lifestyle, and just happened to be one of the first things I bought. And I really believe it's a time saver, and you can use this for very many different things. I don't know if you can see on this, but there's also kind of a little ruler on this as
Yeah.
well. So if you're trying to cut things to size, that's also on. That's also available here. But a bench scraper, in fact, this is one of the tools that I pack when I go on tour. And this has gone all over the country so far with me. One of my essential tools, just like a carpenter would use a hammer, a chef uses a bench scraper. So I strongly encourage you to get a bench scraper. Some of you may be familiar with a version of it, and this is kind of another type of version. This is also a bowl scraper. So if you're baking and you want to clean your bowl out really well, you would use that. But this is just another version of a bench scraper. So
All right.
so that's one thing. The second thing, people often ask, well, especially new people to this lifestyle, to vegan, is what kind of tools do I need? I said my thing, initially is just keep it simple, keep it really simple. So the two things that I always tell people to make sure you have is a nice chef knife and a paring knife.
Okay.
So this chef knife is actually, these two knives are about 37 years old. We got these when my wife and I got married for a wedding present, for a wedding shower gift. And they're really good knives. I still get them sharpened. And this one's it's probably getting due for a new one. I don't know if you could tell, it's a little thin. So it kind of lost some of the metal after sharpening all those years. But I get these professionally sharpened at least once a year. So you want to have two really good knives, and you want to keep these sharp all the time too. And Glenn, you know what this is? This is not to kill a vampire or anything, but it's
that is a kitchen screwdriver.
Kitchen screwdriver. It's a honing blade. So
honing blade.
Honing, yeah.
Now, what do you use a honing blade for?
So every time you cook with a knife, you're going to damage the edge of it. So to keep it sharp and to knock some of those little damages off, are called burrs. You want to hone your knives after you use them. So for example, if you make a meal, you wash your blade, then you're going to put it back in your block there and store it. Before you use it the next time, then getting ready to use it, you want to hone your blade. So you want to knock off those little burrs, keeps your knife super sharp, and just helps with the overall cutting experience.
So how do you do that?
So what you want to do is you want to take, you probably have seen some professional chefs do this whole thing, where they go back and forth and go really fast and it looks really fancy. It's a really good show, I think. So what I teach my students is, what you want to do is you want to take your honing blade and keep it perpendicular to your worktop. Take your knife and put it against the side of the honing blade and just tilt it out about, I would say maybe a quarter to a half inch, and then slide your blade down, slide it down. And what you're trying to do again is just knocking those burrs off the knife, and you just kind of take it and slide it down and drag it down. Do that maybe about 3 times each side, and that's it. That's all it takes. And the same with your little paring knife, right? You want to take it, you want to just drag it down. As you drag it down, you're kind of pulling it back. So drag it down and pull it back. See, like that. Drag it down and pull it back. Drag it down and pull it back. So
and at the same time, I think you're sharpening your honing blade.
Well, I don't know if you're sharpening it, but what you're doing is you're knocking those burrs off. This honing blade actually as I'm looking at it now, a good honing blade. You probably some of your viewers and listeners probably have these sitting in their block at home at their their knife block at home or in their drawer and don't know what it is. But if you look at one that you haven't used very much, it's almost like a file. Feels like a rasp on it.
Right.
This one's again 37 years old. It's kind of worn down.
Everything you have is 37 years old. Do you have anything that you didn't get when you got married?
This.
Oh, okay.
But that's the whole point. When I'm when I teach students that are new to this whole cooking and vegan stuff, use the things that you have in your house.
All right.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. If you want to, if it's working, keep using it.
So what else do you have?
So the next one is let's get a little bit into garlic and food.
You have some 37-year-old garlic in the house?
No, it's brand new garlic. In fact, I just got it today. So I'm going to tilt my camera down a little bit. And garlic. So you always want to use the freshest ingredients. And how much fresher can you get than a fresh garlic, right? Right. Not 37 years old. I just got it this morning, in fact, at the grocery stores. But how do you quickly peel this thing, right? Well, I've had students tell me, they'll sit in front of the TV and watch their favorite sitcom and sit and try to pull this thing apart. Now, I've got pretty good sized mitts, right? I mean, I use extra large gloves, for example. And even for me to get in here and kind of pull it apart can be a bit of a challenge. I'm going to show you how easy this is. You can do one of about 3 different ways. You can take it and put it in the palm of your hand and just press down like this, right? Right, and then you start popping it apart. So the problem is like that's not barely coming apart. The other thing you can do is you can take your knife like this and just give it a good whack like that, and then it just starts kind of popping apart. The other thing that our trusty handy dandy bench scraper can do is you could take it and use it kind of as a buffer between your hand and the garlic, and just go ahead and whack it like that, and then it starts busting the garlic cloves apart. All right. So now you get all these neat little garlic cloves, and they literally want to start jumping out of their skin here in a good way.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a couple of those garlic, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut. See this little root end here? This little root end. You just want to cut that little root end off, right? So you're going to take one.
Now you use the big knife for that.
I'm going to use the big knife. I tend to use the big knife for the majority of my cutting, my 37-year-old big knife, and then all you do is you can do this one of 2 ways. You could take the side of your knife again and just whack it, and then look at this. It just kind of jumps right out of the skin like that. See that? And if you have, there's like nothing really left. Maybe there's just a little piece, so you just kind of drop that out. I'm going to take another one here and just kind of show it. Let's hit it. And what you're also doing when you're peeling the garlic like this, I don't know if you can see it. There's some essential oils that are starting to come out of the garlic. The other thing you could do is use your handy dandy bench scraper again and just hit the side of it like that, and then it just kind of pops right out of the skin. So what you've now done is you've not only released it from the skin, Glenn, but you now have begun to crush the garlic, and you're going to save yourself some time. And all you're going to do is now just kind of take it. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to use this type of chef's knife, use it the right way. Don't bang it like this. You hear it, that sounds really good like on TV, right? That's not the way this knife is supposed to be used. 2 things. One is you're not having the knife work for you. You're working against it. And second, if you're banging it like that, you're gonna start causing damage to this edge, and you're gonna have to get it sharpened more frequently.
So what do you do instead of banging it?
So what you do is you want to use the shape of the blade and work with it. So you want to let it rock like that. See that? See how I'm letting it rock? So you want it to rock like that, and that's all you do, right? So
Okay.
now I've got some nice minced garlic, um, and away you go. You could add
Okay.
that to your pan. All
Now,
right.
what's the next hack?
The next hack is our friend the onion. All
Ah,
right.
now how do you prepare an onion without needing to cry?
Oh, that's an easy one. Let me show you how good this bench scraper is. Watch this too, right?
Yeah.
Whoop. And you gotta make,
Oh man, that was fast.
isn't that amazing? And you gotta
Yeah.
make that sound too when you do.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So what you want to do with an onion, a couple of things. You always want to cut it pole to pole, right? So when we're going to start preparing this onion, we're going to cut it pole to pole. Keep your fingers out of the way, right? We don't want any of our flesh in there. So you're going to cut it pole to pole. And if you don't cut that root end. If you cut that root end, that's what releases the gases. And I'm very, very susceptible to it. And I mean, I'll start tearing up right away. I'm a pretty sentimental guy to begin with, but you don't
Right.
want to be in a sentimental when I'm making your dinner. So then all I do is just go ahead and peel off probably a layer or two of this onion really quickly here, and then what you do, nature has done a really interesting thing here. Never cut that root end again, because that's what's going to make you cry. But nature's done this beautiful thing, is it's already created some layers and some cuts in it itself. So what you want to do is you want to go with the cuts, right? So essentially what you'll do is you'll take that onion and then go kind of perpendicular, I guess you would say, to that root end. Don't cut into the root end, right?
So the root end is what makes you cry if you cut it?
The root end is what makes you cry. Yeah. So if you start cutting into that
Why
root
is
end,
that?
that's where the plant, the onion, if you will, is connected to the plant, and it gets all its nutrients in there. So that's where it's going to be the most, all those nutrients and everything. So you're actually cutting into all that nutrients, the liquid that's in there, and then
But you
you're
don't
releasing
cook
that
with
gas.
that thing in it, do
You
you?
don't cook with it either, right? So
What do you
all I've
do?
done so far is I've cut up to that root end, and I've cut now kind of perpendicular, if you will, to the root end. And now what I've done is, because I've made those cuts. Remember, nature has put these nice cuts in it initially. Now I've gone kind of perpendicular to the root. Now what I'm going to do is go parallel to my worktop. Keep your hand out of the way, and just make a couple of cuts like that. So now you're going parallel. So now I've got the cuts going kind of perpendicular to the root. I've got the cuts now that I've made parallel to the bench, and nature's made some cuts by themselves. So now all I have to do is work with my chef knife and make some really nice dices. And there we have some diced onions.
And so the root never gets removed.
Yeah. So what I end up doing with the root, Glenn, is I might even just like cut it like that, and then this goes into my compost. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's our onions. My next little hack is, how do you peel this little guy?
Ah, that's always a tough one.
That's
Ginger.
it. Yeah. The ginger is always a tough one. So what I like to do is I just take
A spoon.
a spoon and just peel the.
Is that a regular spoon or is that serrated?
So this is actually a garlic spoon, a grapefruit spoon. You see the
Grapefruit
little,
spoon.
little serrated edges. You don't need to use it. I like using this one because it makes it a little easier. You can use just a regular teaspoon if you don't have one of these fancy grapefruit spoons with the little serrated edge. But this works just as well. You see, now I'm just going to peel my garlic, peel my ginger. And oh, by the way, this ginger, I freeze my ginger. So we cut it up into little knobs like that and freeze it.
Uh-huh.
And when I need it, I take it out about a half hour before I need to use it, and just go ahead and let it thaw out. So now I've got this all nicely peeled, and all I need to do now is just go ahead and dice this up really nicely. And I like the flavor of ginger. I also so I like to use more, and I also, I'm not a big stickler on cutting things up super fine. So it's really kind of your preference on how fine you want to cut that. But there's our ginger.
That looks like a delicious meal of garlic, onion, and ginger.
And ginger. Oh, we've got one more thing to add here, and this
Okay.
is my next hack. And
Red pepper.
how to do a pepper, right? How to easily cut up a pepper. So again, nature's done a nice job already. You know, if we just work with Mother Nature, Mother Nature can really help us prepare food relatively quickly. So you can do this with any type of pepper like this: red, green, yellow, orange, whatever. So what you want to do with this is you take the top off, take the bottom off, and then all you do is you cut it like that, and then it splays open, and then all you have to do is just kind of fillet those bitter white ribs out of it, right? And then just go ahead and take you've already got this nice kind of slab, if you will, of a red pepper, and now I'm just going to make some juliennes out of this.
Okay.
I'm going to do this up really quick. See how quick this goes?
Yeah.
And then what you want to do, you know, of course, you're always going to keep those fingers tucked under, and then you just take them kind of like a deck of cards, get them all even, and then flip them around like this. And now all I'm going to do is take all my julienne strips and just cut them down. Remember, see how I'm using my knife, my chef's knife?
Yeah.
I'm just allowing the knife to do all the work. And so I'll do that much. And then if we get some big pieces in here, we just go ahead and chop those up. And then for these guys, for the tops and the bottoms, all we have to do is go ahead and cut that like that. And then we cut those guys down. And now we've got some really nice diced red pepper. So really quick, really easy. You know, you have really little waste. I mean, I could keep cutting that up, but you see, the only waste we had really was that inside and the bitter ribs. And again, this is going to go into your compost. All right. So my next hack, I'm going to take it over here and Glenn, guess how old this pan is?
37-year-old pan, I'd say.
It is. It's a 37-year-old Faberware pan. So
yeah,
stainless steel. I really like to use this one for a couple of reasons. One is I'm able to do things on camera like this. And the second thing is it, again, proves my point that use those things that you have in your kitchen,
right?
That will help, that you already have, and you don't need to necessarily go out and buy new appliances.
Now, is that a measuring cup next to the pan?
This is a measuring cup, and we're going to talk about.
Is it 37 years old?
No, this is probably about 10 years old. So.
Oh.
But I do have a 37-year-old niece, so you know,
Okay.
there's a theme here, I think, you know.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to let this get nice and hot, and just kind of, you know, you can do this. This is electric. You can do the same on gas. And what we're going to do is we're going to saute now these onions. I'm going to stick particularly with the onions here. Get my garlic out of the way here. I'm going to saute these in a dry, hot pan. So you don't want to put any oil in this pan. You just want to leave it nice and dry and hot, because what you want to do is you want to start caramelizing the onions. So what you do is we're going to take our little bent scraper and see I've got all my onions on that, and we're going to drop it right in the middle of our pan there. And don't be afraid that it's going to burn or anything like this. I've got this up on like 400 degrees. So we're just going to keep moving this around. And for those of you that maybe have not sauteed without oil, this may be the first time you're seeing it. You're wondering, well, how is this not going to stick? Well, you know, a couple of things. You just want to keep this moving around. And I'm just going to turn this down just a little touch. You kind of hear it sizzling. So what the onions are doing now is they're releasing their natural juices, their water and so forth, and we're starting to caramelize them. So we're starting to release some of the natural sugars that are in these onions. And if you start seeing brown bits like this, really easy. We go ahead and release it with a little bit of water. And we've released all those brown bits. And see, our 37-year-old pan, nothing sticks to that. You can see how it's starting to brown already, right? How quickly that is. I'm going to put my garlic in there. I'm going to throw a little bit of garlic that we had sauteed. And this is actually a nice base. If you wanted to do some other vegetables, you can throw this. But typically when you're cooking, you're going to be using, onions, garlic, some peppers, or you might use onion, garlic, and celery. Kind of a classic mirepoix, which is any kind of base to most of our soups and so forth. And then we're just going to take it. We're going to take our bench scraper again, and that sound that we make is whoop, right? Go ahead and throw that in there.
How long did it take you to learn that sound?
To learn that, I just practiced it this morning, actually.
Okay.
So, and we'll just keep that all kind of moving around here. Now the question becomes, so you're just deglazing with water? Yeah. So I'm just releasing any of those bits with water. You can deglaze with, if you wanted to use broth. If you wanted to use a red wine, you could certainly deglaze with a red wine. You're going to burn the alcohol off, so if you're concerned about that, but it would give just a different taste to that. And that's how easy it is to go ahead and not only chop all your vegetables, prepare them, saute them in a pan, and then deglaze your pan with some water, and away you go. So those are my kitchen hacks. Those are 10 of them actually. I think I'm up to about 35 that I teach people in a class on how to continue to reduce your time in the kitchen.
You've got 35 hacks.
35 hacks. Yeah.
Wow.
So one of them, the other one that I talk a lot about is batch cooking. So my wife and I, as much as we love to cook, I also don't want to spend every day cooking when I'm at home, because I've got a lot of other things going around. So we'll typically batch cook. We'll have, and this diet really lifestyle, if you will, bodes well for making beans and rice, and then combining those with other spices, throughout the week to morph them into other dishes. Or so, for example, today I'm going to be making my clam chowder that we'll be making for a tour. I like to practice.
Now, when you say clam chowder, just for the listeners, what is the clam?
The clam is oyster mushrooms.
Oyster mushrooms.
Oyster mushrooms.
So it's really oyster chowder.
Yeah, oyster chowder. Yeah. But the clam in quotes, right?
Right.
In quotes. But what we like to do is, I like to practice them. I like to refine them, make sure that we're spot on before we serve those to any of our guests. But we'll make it today. We'll have it today, and then probably.
So your wife will be helping.
My wife will be helping me. So we'll make the soup today, and then we'll probably have a couple of servings today, and then let's say Monday, and then a couple of servings on Wednesday. We made, yesterday we made a big salad and some beans, and we had some of that for lunch today. So don't be afraid to think about making 2 or 3, dishes, and maybe if there's the 2 of you or 4 of you that are eating that way, and doubling that recipe, and then eating it a couple of times during the week. So batch cooking is a great way to save time in the kitchen.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and just real quick, you can kind of see how these are cooking up really, really nicely now. So they're just about done, and we can throw some rice in there, some beans, and we'll have a really, really delicious.
See, that's
dish.
the thing about eating the way we eat, is it's really simple. Once you know how to construct a meal.
That's right.
Whether it's rice, whether it's millet, whether it's
Bulgur. One of my favorite one is frika. You ever hear of frika?
What is frika?
Frika is
It's a grain?
It's a grain. It's a smoked grain. So it's got a faint smoky taste and aroma to it. Apparently,
how do you spell this? Frika?
Frekah.
I never heard of this.
Yeah, freekeh. So what happened was, it was one of these things, one of these grains that was discovered by accident, probably a couple thousand years ago. So when the story goes, a village was attacked by a warring faction. They burned the village down, but then all the grains were left in one of the storage facilities. They went to go back and kind of clean things up after the village was attacked and burned, and they found the grain in there, and they were like, well, we don't want to waste this grain. So what they did is they put it on flat rocks and beat them with palm fronds and released all the charred outsides, and then on the inside you still have the grain. So now there's a formal process where they do that same thing where they smoke these grains. And then all you have to do is cook it like rice, and it's got this really nice smoky, chewy texture to it. So I would.
And where do you get freekeh?
So freekeh, if you can go, you can get that at a Middle Eastern store. If there's a Middle Eastern store where you live, or one of your favorite online retailers, you can get freekeh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I never had that.
Yeah, try that. Yeah, you should give it a shot. That's the beautiful thing about this lifestyle, this diet too, is you get exposed to so many different types of foods. I mean, I never heard of freekeh before.
Yeah.
I became a professional chef and food for life instructor.
Right. Well, I never heard of freekeh until I became a professional sous chef.
There you go, and that's what. So I'm looking for a sous chef, perhaps for Tuscany in 2025. So
I'm available.
You're available, yeah. So that's going to be. It's a kind of.
And I know how to use a bench press like nobody's business.
You know how to use one of these things?
Yeah, bench. What I said, press.
Bench
what
scraper.
Scraper. Yeah, bench scraper.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bench press is what I do to stay strong.
Yeah, I noticed you do a lot of bench pressing. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm up to like 500 pounds or something like that.
Right? Yeah. Oh, that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that metric or?
Yeah. What do you do as an exercise routine?
Oh my, walking, and bike riding. Those are my two big things that I do. So this morning, in fact, before our show here, I went out and rode about 10 miles. I love the bike. This is the time of the year, of course, being in the Midwest, you can get out. In the wintertime, I'll go to the gym. I also have a cross trainer in my house. So I'll do that in the wintertime. But my two big things are walking and biking. And then I have these resistance bands and these other bands that just flip over the back of a door. So then you kind of using your own weight for resistance. So
I like to run laps. I try to run like 100 laps a day, which sounds impressive, but they're laps around an area rug in my family room.
All right.
So I just run around my area rug.
Well, the problem is you probably got to get a new rug every couple of months.
Yeah, but you could do like 100 laps that way without breaking a sweat. So it's good.
There you go.
And now your wife, you say she is helpful as a sous chef, right?
Oh yeah, she's my sous chef. So the deal was, it was her idea, truth be told, that I become a food for life instructor. Okay. Yeah. So I was 58, we had just become whole food plant-based, and I was kind of at that point in my life where I took some time off, took a sabbatical from the work world, was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And she came across the Food for Life instructor advertisement in Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, or PCRM's magazine. And she comes to me with the magazine and says, "You got to do this." I said, "What? Do what?" She said, "You got to be a Food for Life instructor. You like to teach." I used to teach in corporate America and in healthcare. "And you like to cook." We've always cooked our entire lives, and we were kind of the geeks at 20 some years old. When we were married at 24 and 25 respectively, and we were young kids, but we used to watch cooking shows back then, and we've always cooked for family and friends. And she said, "So you like to talk, you like to teach, and you like to cook. This is good. This is what you should do." And I didn't really want to do it at first, Glenn. I was just like, "No, man, it's just a lot of work." And but then here I am, fast forward 3.5 years later, and not only do I teach people how to transition to this lifestyle through my own business, Let's Eat Great food, but I also cook for folks on tours. And the average age of folks on our tours is like that mid-50. We have couples, a lot of singles. We rent these huge houses, by the way. That's the other thing I didn't mention. When we go to national parks like Zion and Rocky Mountain and so forth, we rent these huge houses. They have big professional kitchens, like 10,000 square feet. One of the houses that we had in Zion had a 10-person theater.
10-person theater.
Theater, yeah, proper theater seats like when you go to with the recliners and everything and the surround sound and all that. Yeah, I mean, just give you an idea what these houses are like. They're beautiful vistas. We were in Rocky Mountain National Park. We were in Grand Lake, which is the quieter side of Rocky Mountain National Park. Estes Park is kind of where everybody goes, and then Grand Lake is where all the locals from Denver go. We were in Grand Lake on Shadow Mountain Lake. So every morning guests would wake up and they're on the deck and the lakes there in the mountains, and they have a wonderful, healthy breakfast in the morning. So. Yeah.
So by becoming a Food for Life instructor, that gave you the ability to teach healthy ways of preparing food.
Yeah, exactly. So as a Food for Life instructor, it's a pretty arduous process. Actually, they only take about a third of the people that apply, and you have to send.
How do they weed out those who, like you and me, are not professional chefs?
Yeah. So what they do is they're looking for different skills, right? So one of the things that they're looking for is a passion to be able to really talk about this topic. Another one is a comfortability talking to people in front of people and teaching. And then also a plan. What are you gonna do with this license once if you get accepted to the class and then complete the
now
course.
at the time that you became a Food for Life instructor, you didn't know you were going to become a veg Johnson Journey chef. So what did you say that your plan was?
My plan at the time was really the main plan was to teach people here locally. So I'm in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, southwest suburbs of Chicago, was to teach people locally the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet, and then how to transition into a whole food plant-based lifestyle.
And you do that through let'seatgreat.com?
Exactly right. I do that through let'seatgreat.com, and I've got a list of classes there in my bio, and I've got all kind of research on the benefits of this diet on there, and then so that was my plan, and then to work with local healthcare organizations, because I worked for two major healthcare institutions here in Chicago, Loyola University Medical Center and also Northwestern Medicine. And I would use those contacts and those venues to, really teach people and connect with physicians and staff and so forth. And then the pandemic hit, right? I was licensed in March 1st of 2000. We were out in LA for the classes and for the licensure process, and I heard about this thing called COVID and didn't know what it was. And 2 weeks later, the whole world was different. But because of COVID, we couldn't do anything in person. So then all of us, Food for Life instructors, the new folks that were recently licensed, and then the folks that had been licensed, started doing this work online. And that continues to this day for me. When I'm not on tour, I do classes online, both public classes, and then I have groups that have asked me directly to do classes for them. I've done a few classes in person here in my area as well, which is a lot of fun. Being able to be there with folks in person, but I reach a really wide net. I mean, I've had people from all over the world attend classes, New Zealand and England and Central America, and people from East to West Coast here as well in the United States.
Now are you doing any in-person classes?
So my first in-person class this year won't be until December. It's actually going to be for a teen center. They asked me to come and do some classes for the students that come after school. and teach them how to make. We're actually do some healthy desserts for the holidays. So
Good.
yeah, I've done a couple classes like that. But the tour business has really taken a good chunk of my time, because between about the beginning of April through almost to beginning of October, it's planning, it's reaching out, it's traveling, it's doing all that stuff related to the travel business that keeps me really busy between April and the beginning of October. So then I really have October to March to focus on some classes. And if you come to my website, sign up for a newsletter, you'll get when those online classes are going to be held and so forth. So.
And I'm guessing you accommodate people on the tours who have to be gluten-free or have some allergy or
yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate that. Yeah, so because we're a small group, we can be exceptionally flexible. So before people come on our tour, we send out a survey asking people, do they have any allergies? Do they have any food that they just don't like, right? A lot of times we get people that just don't like celery or don't like green peppers, or for those folks that have that gene that makes cilantro taste like soap, they don't want to eat cilantro, so we'll leave those out. Somebody follows a salt-free diet, we can accommodate gluten-free diets. So we had a lady on our last tour that really wanted to avoid nightshades, in particular nightshades like raw tomatoes, eggplants, and onions. So we were able to accommodate those diets.
That's a macrobiotic thing.
It really, right?
Avoiding nightshade vegetables.
Right.
I once lived in a group vegetarian house in Brookline, Massachusetts. And we were interviewing to try to get a new person to join the house. And there was a macrobiotic school nearby.
Wow.
So when we would interview people, I would get this question: do you eat vegetables that grow at night? And the first time I heard that question, I just said, I don't know. I never get up to look.
Yeah.
But apparently they're against eating vegetables that grow at night. Now, here's my question. This is philosophical. This is a little deep, so you're going to have to take your time answering it. But what is night to a potato? That's a deep question, isn't it?
Well,
what is night to a potato?
Especially because the potato lives underground.
Yeah.
However,
it doesn't know what night is.
However, the green leafy stalk is above ground, and it's going to be converting, the light and chlorophyll and all that kind of good stuff. So I suspect somehow that those nutrients obviously get to that potato. So
I don't know. It was very confusing.
Well, and the interesting thing about this guest is it wasn't even a philosophical, I don't want to avoid this or that because of whatever. It was, if she ate raw tomatoes or ate onions, she physically felt sick.
Yeah.
So and you have to be careful. So far our folks that have been requested gluten-free, it's not that they had any type of severe reaction, anaphylactic shock or anything like that to gluten. It's just that they felt bloated when they ate gluten. And so we respect that. Unfortunately, there's lots of options out there for gluten-free pastas and gluten-free breads, and of course, instead of oatmeal, even having gluten-free oats for oatmeal in the morning. So there's lots of options.
All right.
You can address.
So thank you, Mark, for joining us. People can find you at letseatgreat.com and at vegjohnsonjourneys.com.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we'll see you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Mark. This has been the Glenn Mercer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. Find us on YouTube at The Glenn Mercer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.